Thank you for joining us for episode 79 of the PuckPod by BD Sports. I'm Cristian Chiniti. To my left is Aidan McDonald. To his left is Brandon Brown. And operating the soundboard, just like last time, is David Leo. Guys, it's episode 79. What's 79 backwards? 97. We're going to be talking a lot about a certain number 97 on the Edmonton Oilers and how he's been able to get his team back into the fold in the Stanley Cup Final. Last time we spoke, it was 2-0 Florida. It is now 3-2 Florida. Edmonton has won 2 of the past 3 games. Before we talk a lot about Connor McDavid, let's talk about how we got to 3-2 in this series. Game 3, Game 4, Game 5. Who has thoughts to share from any of those 3 games?
Well, I guess we'll start it out. So it started off pretty hot for Florida, and I thought my prediction, honestly, Panthers in 5. I was like, maybe I overestimated Panthers in 5. I was looking like a sweep going into Game 2. Yeah, coming out of Game 3, man, the Panthers looked so good until they so did not look good going into Game 4. Game 4, unfortunately, like I don't know about you guys, but I really didn't watch a single second, and then I saw the scoreline, and I was like, yeah, I'm not even going to bother trying to tune in. We were like working on stuff that day. I think everybody was. But yeah, just it wasn't going to happen basically, right? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, Game 3, great game. I mean, like Oilers, it was tough for the Oilers, you know, like played a pretty good first period. Then Reinhart gets on the board, a minute left in the first. They answer, and then just like an avalanche of goals come from Florida. And for me, player of the game had to be Barkov. I mean, like Game 2, he took that nasty elbow from Draisaitl, and then he bounced back and then, you know, had a goal, had an assist. Like, I thought he kind of propelled them to that win. And then, yeah, Game 4, I passed out halfway through. Like, a kind of.
Okay, the Panthers did too.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But yeah, and then Game 5, I mean.
It's another great game.
One of the best playoff games I've seen in a while, but we'll touch on that in a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, when you look at Sergei Bobrovsky, we were all, fawning over him after Games 1 and 2. And then you get into Game 3, he plays well, they win the game, but it's Game 4 and Game 5, it's like, what has happened to Sergei ever since they got into Game 4 with the opportunity to win the Stanley Cup? He has kind of flipped the script in terms of how well he's played early, and now not so much.
Yeah, it seems like for a guy who really never folded under pressure, who it didn't seem like folded under pressure in at least over the past 2 playoff runs, I would say now that's 7 or 8. This is his 8th series in the past 2 years, right? Back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals. Apart from, the whole team kind of crumbling against Vegas, has Sergei Bobrovsky ever kind of crumbled under the bright lights? Is the thought of being right there, they are quite literally on the precipice of glory, is that thought potentially creeping into his head? That's what it seems like to me. There was that one goal, I think it was a McDavid goal, where I forget now if it was 3, 4, or 5, where McDavid's just kind of skating off the wing and kind of fires it seems like a muffin, and it just sneaks behind his leg, and it's just that does not look like the same. You know what Sergei Bobrovsky that looks like? That looks like the Sergei Bobrovsky that was benched in favor of Spencer Knight and James Reimer a couple of years ago, right?
Absolutely. No, you're 100% right. I think that goal in particular, Game 4 was sort of a weird anomaly where Edmonton, got momentum early and they just kind of suffocated Florida. But Game 5, it was a completely different story, a much closer game, and I think you can lay some of the blame in that game specifically at the feet of Sergei Bobrovsky for some goals, like you said, Dave, that are not typical of his style of play.
If I'm going to highlight one player on the Oilers side, because listen, Bobrovsky, his change of play has obviously been a huge reason for why Edmonton's been able to get back to the series. If I'm going to highlight somebody on the Oilers whose name is not Connor McDavid, it's pretty close. It's Connor Brown. Listen, this guy in the regular season he had 4 goals and 8 assists, 12 points in 71 games. And basically more than half of that, I think he's got 2 goals as of recent. He has, what are his stats here? In the past 5 games, he's got 2 points in the last 2 games. And they also had 3 points in the Stars series. He's got 6 points in the playoffs. So he's already halfway to his point total from the regular season. And really that whole line that he's been with, Adam Henrique and Matthias Janmark, I think they've been a huge difference maker for the Oilers in terms of that is their I don't know if we want to say identity line, but the energy line. I think they've been a big part of the reason outside of McDavid and the star power why the Oilers have been able to get back in this series. Outside of that, it is McDavid. It's a lot of McDavid talk, but rightfully so. What is it about Connor McDavid's performance in this series, in this playoffs, that's not? You can't even say surprised you. But what is the most impressive things he's been doing in this series and the playoffs?
I'll put it this way. As you guys know, I'm a LeBron guy. McDavid, I've never said this about any other athlete. McDavid's on a 2016 LeBron James run right now. It's just like, I'm just so impressed how nothing has phased him, even down 3-0. Like, you could see in his eyes, he had no doubts Edmonton was going to get back in this series. And he's not the most vocal guy, but the way he's been leading on the ice just by effort. Like, most superstars, I don't know if this is a reach, you guys could agree or disagree. I feel like most of the high-end scorers, they're just mostly focused on offense during the playoffs. But McDavid's back checking, he's getting physical, he's getting into these scrums. I don't know, he's just a full-on leader. And it's just so impressive how he's done it, not with his words, but with his play. And then just the way he's able to set up his teammates. Because when you think of McDavid, he's obviously going to get goals and he's just an unbelievable skater. But the way he's been setting up guys like Corey Perry, that was an unbelievable assist.
Highlight reel.
I don't know. He's just been leading them in every aspect of the ice. That's what's been most impressive to me.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know who he kind of reminds me of? Not that I don't want to compare these two players because I think they're almost playing on two different wavelengths, but he is kind of giving me shades of Nate Mack in 2022. That Nate Mack, that version we saw of Nate Mack. Not to say that we haven't seen that version of him, but he was playing on a different playing field than everybody else in that series against Tampa. He looked by far and away the best player in that playoffs and he got that Conn Smythe trophy. He deserved or was it McCarr that got that? No, it was him, right?
No, McCarr did get it, but dude, McKinnon put the team on the back in that series.
Yeah. I mean, Cam McCarr was very, very good. But if it was up to me, I would still give it to Nate Mack. Nate Dogg, as we should call him. Yeah, he McDavid looks like an amplified version of that, which is beyond belief, basically. That is, I think we all kind of highlighted, if the Oilers had any chance of at least making this a series, it would have had to been on the back of him and probably Leon Draisaitl, who I personally don't think has looked too hot so far through 5 games, right?
He said it himself. I think he's only got 2 points so far, and that 3 game, games 1 through 3, that was his first 3-game pointless streak in 4 years. Incredible.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
But I love the comparison, Dave, with Nate McKinnon, because it's the speed at which they play the game and the speed at which they can make plays with little space, because that's what McDavid has shown in this, at least this series specifically, is the way that the Panthers have suffocated the Oilers outside of that McDavid line. I feel just demonstrates the fact that he's able to break through defensive structures in a way that 95% of the players in the NHL just can't do. But there are a small contingent of players that can go ahead and make those style of plays at the fastest speed with the smallest amount of time and space to be able to do it. And he's just proving time and time again that, in my opinion, he may be the closest thing to Gretzky that we've ever seen. The way that he can handle the puck and at the speed in which he's almost changing the way the game is played.
Yeah, how the Oilers managed to get arguably the 2 best players of all time on their team. That's
them and the Penguins, they just hoard them.
Send some of that love over this way, pal.
At least
we're starving here.
But yeah, McDavid 8 points in his last 2 games, unbelievable. One of his points, the assist to Corey Perry. Honestly, say what you want about Corey Perry, I was happy he scored that big goal. I mean, this guy's on the verge of losing 4 Cup Finals in the last 5 years. We know what happened earlier. Well, we don't really know, but something happened earlier this season that got him to Edmonton. But I don't know. I'm kind of rooting for the villain here. I would love to see Corey Perry hoist the cup.
Sometimes you have to root for the villain.
Yeah.
It's
every sport needs villains and heroes, right? You got to have both.
It makes the story so much better. Is there I mean, I could probably name off a few, but how many better villains are there in the NHL right now than Corey Perry? Like Brad, Sam Bennett, probably the whole Panthers
Kachuk.
team.
Yeah.
That whole
Kachuk's.
Panthers team
Yeah.
is honestly the villain of the NHL.
Oh,
like
yeah.
not
Yeah.
many people want to see them succeed. A lot of people want to see McDavid win the cup. If they end up coming back, like what a Herculean feat that is. Hasn't been done since 1942. I don't know if we were going to bring up that stat later on.
Yeah.
Shout out the Leafs.
Yeah, go Leafs.
Shout out to the
Yeah.
Leafs. Let's
Yeah.
go Leafs.
Go Leafs. Why?
Let's let's stay on McDavid here for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, that goal, that Perry goal, because he actually made history with that goal as well. He was the first ever player to score a goal for 5 different teams in the Stanley Cup Final.
Wow.
Pretty crazy.
Ooh,
Pretty
that's so
crazy
wild.
stat. And then you mentioned as well, 8 points in the past 2 games. That is an NHL record for most points in a 2-game span. And he's got 34 assists. Now, we are definitely burying the lead with the fact that Brando mentioned Gretzky. Yeah, he's going to be able to get within striking distance of Gretzky here in these next 2 games. Obviously, Gretzky having the point record at 47 points in 1984-85, 17 goals, 30 assists for 47. McDavid right now is sitting in 4th with 8 goals, 34 assists for 42 points. Oh, and by the way, those 34 assists, that's also a record. He did break a Gretzky record in this playoff run. Those 34 assists, forget about goals, 34 points would put him 3rd among active players in the salary cap era in a playoff run. It's only Kucherov with 34 a couple of years ago, and Evgeny Malkin back in either 08 or 09 with 36 points. So
That's wild.
That's
so
unreal.
ridiculous.
it's absurd. There is just so many stats you can look at with McDavid here.
It's just crazy how productive he's been when, Florida's whole game plan is basically to shut him down.
They just can.
Yeah.
Like when he's playing at this level, there is quite little. Like we could say like, oh, maybe this player, maybe this player. No, like there's quite literally nobody who can shut him down because 4 teams before him tried. It looked like the Panthers were starting to. Like it looked like Sasha Barkov had him locked down. Well, he has Draisaitl locked down, but it seems like the power of Connor McDavid is just too strong for every single player in this league.
Like there's one play in game 1, Barkov gets past McDavid and outskates him, and everyone was looking at wow, no one's ever outskated Connor McDavid. How did that happen? That's the one edge Barkov had. Ever since then, I feel like McDavid's just been catching up to him, and now he's just taken over the series, I feel like.
Yeah, and it's that resiliency too. After game 3, it might have been easy for anyone to say, I'm still going to go out there and do my best, but I may not have that kind of desperation after a 3-0 hole that's hasn't been overachieved since the 40s, right? So the way that he came out, and he still has that dog. If anything else, he's more aggressive. He's more intense. And now kind of having that feeling of we can come back and do this, I think we're going to see just an incredible performance from him in Game 6.
And the line after Game 4 where he's we got to drag him back to Alberta. Classic line.
Yeah, listen, McDavid's not exactly the best for quotes. He's never going to be the GOAT quote, but you know what? He's picking up steam there too, honestly. We've gotten some good sound bites out of him.
Just one question about McDavid. I argue Game 5 was the best game of his career.
I don't think there's.
Would you agree?
Okay, how many games? He has a game where he hit doesn't he have a game like that? He hit 7 points or something.
Regular
he has
season, right?
ridiculous regular season game.
Yeah.
I think playoffs you amplify whatever a regular season game is by 2.
I'd argue that was the best game of his career.
Yeah.
He was unbelievable.
He had 2 back to back. You could argue Game 4 and then even Game 5. You said Game 4, McDavid, or Game 5?
Game 5.
Dude, I would even argue Game 4 is up there as well. Even though they were down on a 3-0 hole at that time, maybe Game 5 goes differently if he's not a superhuman basically in Game 4. But he comes out in Game 5, and I don't think I could disagree with that, Aid.
It's definitely his biggest moment. I think if they do end up pulling this off and coming all the way back, that goal by Perry passed by McDavid, I think is going to be one of those moments in NHL history that will just determine almost the beginning of Connor. Not that Connor McDavid's legacy hasn't already started, but in terms of winning the Stanley Cup, reaching that second level, and then having a play like that to kind of just demonstrate how he did it. I think marrying the two together, it would be a fantastic part of his legacy.
Yeah, it'd kind of be like a signature play.
Absolutely.
Brando, thank you for bringing up legacy. That was a shout out to the segue from Brando here. He's a natural. Whoa.
Look at this guy.
Who is this guy?
Okay, so if McDavid does this, he pulls it off. His legacy there, are we already going to cement him as like the best active player? Because like I think the comparable is like it's him and Sidney Crosby. Win or lose, has he already surpassed Sidney Crosby? Or does he need that win for us to be like he is the best active player?
Definitely needs the win.
Yeah.
I think 100%. Without the cups, we talk about the greats of all time in any sport. And who's one that comes to mind? Charles Barkley is, for some reason, top of my mind. Charles Barkley would be regarded in the NBA as a potential, at least I would say like top 5 point guard. I don't know. Like, do you guys agree, disagree on a top 5 point guard? He doesn't have a ring. He is not one of the all-time legends. Even though for all he did on the court for Phoenix, for Houston, it doesn't really ring so true because he has no ring to go with it. Charles Barkley might not be the greatest compared. Like Charles, I'm not gonna sit here and say Charles Barkley and Connor McDavid are on the exact same skill level of thing. Imagine if LeBron never won any rings in Miami and then going back to Cleveland. Like
there'd be no debate.
There would be no debate, right? Michael Jordan, 6 of them. Like imagine if the Bulls just kept struggling with Michael Jordan, Scotty and Mike just couldn't get it done. We're probably looking at Jordan's legacy a heck of a lot differently now than before.
Yeah.
I think you have to get it, and none more so than in hockey. We look at somebody like Marcel Dion comes up when we talk about players who just never won. He has he's in top 10 for all-time NHL points, and I think made it past the second round maybe once with the LA Kings. Like he was basically carrying that Kings franchise to relevance for a big part of the 80s. But nobody really talks about Marcel like that, right?
Yeah, championships have a lot of weight when discussing like players' legacy. I feel like if you take out rings and like Stanley Cups, NBA Finals, like I think you could have a separate discussion for like most skilled players of all time. But when you talk about greatness, I think it embodies winning as well. So for that reason, I think Connor would have to win, I'd say, 2 cups to kind of be in the conversation with Crosby.
Well, Sid's got 3 plus an Olympic gold.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like Sid's done more, so like obviously McDavid has a long way to go in his career, but I don't know if him winning this year would be enough to surpass Sid. Like I think Sid's, you could argue, I would put him. He's for sure top 10 all time. I'd say like players.
I'd even go as
and you
top
could
5.
Top 5.
You could go top 5 as well.
Yeah.
So I think McDavid has a bit more to do, but yeah.
There's so many caveats you can throw around, and I tend to agree with you, A-Dog, where it's like even this win, I think would cement him probably as the best playoff run in history. Like I think he can be up there, right? It's this and the Gretzky run with 47 points.
100%.
So that I think is the separate conversation I would have. But I do see people already making like the Gretzky comparisons, and listen, he's breaking Gretzky records. He's putting himself into the conversation, but that conversation still has a long way to go, and it will continue for the rest of his career. With the Crosby thing and even the Olympic gold, the thing with McDavid is he hasn't even had an opportunity to do that. And I think it's safe to say, had he had that opportunity, he'd have 1 gold. And then with Crosby, you can always throw around the injury stuff. So it's a really tough comparison to make. But I obviously I think McDavid has the most to gain from winning a Stanley Cup in terms of his legacy. Other players on the Florida side of things, I think Sergei Bobrovsky, like this is huge for his legacy. Win or lose, it will be incredibly impacting his legacy. Listen, this is a guy who has 2 Vezina Trophy wins. He's now in 2 finals. He's probably a Hall of Fame goalie, but without the Stanley Cup, I don't know. I think with the Stanley Cup, you can then put him comfortably over like Roberto Luongo, which is crazy to think about because Roberto Luongo is regarded as probably one of, if not, no, he's definitely not the best because there's Martin Brodeur, but you could put Luongo like second, right? And then Bobrovsky could definitely have a better resume than him. I think there's a lot to be gained or lost there.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
If Bob gets a Stanley Cup, does that put him with a better resume than Carey Price?
It probably does, right?
So
Yeah.
two Vezinas.
Yeah.
The only thing that Carey Price has is a Hart
Yeah.
Trophy,
And
which
That's
is
true.
very, very, very,
That's very
tough to do
valuable.
as a goalie.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have the team success, right? But with the Stanley Cup there, I mean, Price came so close. It wasn't a close series, but by God, was Price gonna do his absolute best? And it looked like it really took everything out of him to try and secure his first cup, and he just couldn't
Yeah.
overpower the Lightning.
I would imagine Price's overall numbers are probably a bit better than Bobrovsky, but the Stanley Cup would go so far for Sergei. It's it is the difference. I think it really separates certain goalies from other ones. Roberto Luongo is a great example. Has an incredible long tenured career, but never reached. He reached a Stanley Cup final, but never won. So I think for Bobrovsky, that would separate him and put him again. I think for a long time people thought of him as a top-tier goalie in the NHL, and I think this Stanley Cup win would at least cement that for the time being, and then it all comes down to kind of the numbers in terms of whether we're talking Hall of Fame or where he fits all time. So, but I do think it would be an incredible accomplishment for him, especially a guy who's been through the ups and downs in his career and has struggled at certain times, whether that's Columbus or in Florida even. So,
Yeah, I think like when you look at Panthers versus Montreal Canadiens, like when they both reached the final, I think it's clear the Panthers are the better team. But it's not like Bobrovsky hasn't. I feel like he's the main reason they're in the final. Like
He's not a passenger. By
Yeah.
any means. He's at the top.
so
of that
he's
train.
leading like
Yeah.
a great team, and
And he did that last year as well.
Yeah.
one stat that was pretty wild before after the first period of Game 3, Bobrovsky had a .984 save percentage after the first period of Game 3 for the first two games included, and that was the highest in NHL history. Now, obviously, Edmonton scored 3
In
goals.
playoff history or in finals history?
In highest save percentage in a cup final in NHL history.
Okay.
Second was Patrick Waugh at .974 in 1996.
Which he won.
Yeah. But then, Edmonton scored twice, so it dropped down. He dropped down to 7th in NHL history and the 3rd best in the last 55 years. But ever since then, obviously, he's let off.
Yeah.
I can't even remember how many goals. So
Game 4 really throws that one out the window, right?
yeah.
Even to an extent, even Game 5. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
5 goal, yeah. 4
Probably
goals,
doesn't
right?
help.
Yeah.
So like for the first 2 games, like he looked unbeatable. Like I'm just not sure what this shift has been, and him giving up like soft goals, like the one Dave referenced with McDavid. Like I'm just, maybe it is the fact that they're 1 win away. Like I feel like that's definitely playing a factor into his play recently.
I think it's also playing a factor in another definitely main role player in the Florida Panthers' success or lack of in the past couple games. Paul Maurice. How about the legacy of this guy? This is someone who's been a soundbite every single post-game practice, every single media availability. He's got something to say. And it's been really quiet the past couple games, I'll tell you that. Have you heard a lot from Paul Maurice? I have not. This is a guy who's been in the NHL for 30 years, still searching for his first cup. And he had a quote early on in the series where somebody asked, do you need a cup for your legacy? And he said, yeah, I do. And he's 1 win away. And it's not slipping away from him because, listen, they have the advantage in this series still, but it's right there for the Oilers as well. How about the legacy of Paul Maurice?
I think for sure he needs a cup. I think he knows it, and I think you can sort of start to feel that tension as his mood has changed throughout this cup final specifically. I'm a big Paul Maurice fan. He's been a great coach for a long time, but I think it would severely, I think, tarnish his legacy in terms of how successful he looks in terms of true team success. I think he's had great regular season teams. He's had great runs in the Stanley Cup playoffs, but it all comes down to that hardware. And unless you win a Stanley Cup, it's similar to the Bobrovsky conversation. It's hard to put him up in the upper echelon of coaches, even if you are a big fan of the way he runs an organization or a team without that cup. So it would be a tough loss for Maurice, especially the situation in which it would go down, being up 3-0.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Safe to say, a lot on the line. Game 6 goes tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern. We got to talk about what we think is going to transpire in this game. Who wants to go first? Who wants to lay it out?
Well, listen, I said it before, and I'll say it again. I still have faith that the Florida Panthers are going to close out this series. No, I don't know if I really want to see them close out the series anymore, but I'm still going to stick with it. It's just going to hurt me so much if Zach Hyman lifts the cup. I just don't want to see that. I'm sorry, Connor. Maybe another year, pal.
Sorry, not sorry, Cody Cece.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry, Cody.
Yeah.
That's a stain on the memory. I'm still going to stick with the Panthers. I did say I mentioned top of the show, said Panthers in 5. I'm still going to be wrong. I'm going to be wrong regardless. But I am going to go Panthers in 6.
Give me a score and give me a top performer. Who is the driving force behind a Panthers win tonight?
4-2,
Okay.
Panthers win. Makachuk with 2. Bob,
Okay.
30 saves.
Okay. All right. Who's up next?
Give me the Oilers. Me and Cristian, our prediction's still alive.
Yes,
we both had
sir.
Oilers in 7. I think the Panthers are walking into a hurricane in Rogers Place. I think it's going to be, if you thought game 4 was loud, game 3 was loud, I just can't wait to watch the crowd for this game. I think it's going to be back and forth. I want to say Oilers score, but I feel like Bob's going to give like a Herculean effort and the Oilers pull it out late. I'll say 3-2 Oilers. Big performance from Zach Hyman.
Zach Hyman, eh?
Yeah.
We're going to go to OT, or is that in reg?
Reg.
Okay.
But
Brandon?
OT, that would be unbelievable.
Oh, man.
Save that for game 7.
Oh, and
Please don't.
no, for sure. I think I've gone back and forth about this over the last couple of days as we've been anticipating this big game 6. I have to think that Florida is going to be pretty dialed in for this one. I think they're going to do their best to really shut down that top line with McDavid. And I do expect Florida to come out. I like the idea of a 2-1 game. We could see some overtime there. But I'm going to say that Sasha Barkov comes out, plays a strong defensive game, and probably scores the game winner for the Panthers and potentially takes home that Conn Smythe if they do end up lifting the Stanley Cup tonight.
I'm going to stick with the Oilers as well. Me and A-Dog, we were on this. We totally saw it going down this way, too. We obviously saw that Florida going up 3-0 and then the Oilers storming back and winning 4 in a row. That was obvious, of course.
We predicted this. We just didn't want to give it away for the viewers.
Yeah. Listen, we have the script. No, I'm going to say Oilers 4-2 as well. Or at the flip side to Dave's score there. It's going to be on the back of McDavid. It's going to be, I'll say, it doesn't get on the score sheet with a goal. It's 2 assists. Chris Knobloch, after Game 3, when the Oilers were down 3-0, he said this to the media in his postgame. I think that we've shown we can beat this team. I think that's a pretty crazy quote to come out with when you're down 3-0 in the Stanley Cup Final, and that takes some real cojones. But, dude, they've shown it. And I think they're going to continue to show it as we head into this next game. Listen, we're going to try and get this podcast uploaded before the game goes so that our analysis is still fresh. If not, you got a bit more info than us.
Sorry, pal.
Yeah, sorry, pal. Yeah, but it's gonna be crazy. Dave, we got someone on the line.
Not just yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
very soon.
We have a surprise.
Special guest.
Oh,
Look at
it's
that
coming
timing.
right through.
Look at that
Holy,
timing.
look at this guy.
Uh-oh.
Who do we got on the line?
Bryan, can you hear us? Oh, wait, hold on. Bryan, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys.
Whoa,
there he is.
big.
Welcome to the show, Bryan Wong. Long time no hear, long time no see on the pod. How are we doing?
Pretty good. Euro started. Copa America started. Big shout out to Canada for a pretty decent performance. And I'm ready to talk hockey. It's been a while, guys. How have you been?
We've been good here, man. Thank you for filling the soccer quota. I was telling Dave, I really tried to fit in some soccer stuff into this
We don't
podcast.
need to.
It was tough. We'll get to it in a later episode. But hey, we're about to start talking trade talk. But we just wrapped up our predictions for Game 6 tonight. Who do you got? Give us a score and give us who's the driving force behind that score.
The driving force behind that score is Connor McDavid. It's going to be 4-2 Oilers. McDavid with 4 points.
Wow, dude, you almost nailed mine. I said 4-2 Oilers, McDavid with 2 assists. Okay, all right. Well, let's transition. Let's talk about everything that's been happening off the ice away from the Stanley Cup Final. There's been a lot. I think the most important thing to talk about, and the reason we got Bryan on the line, is because, Bryan, the trade is 1-for-1. Darcy Kuemper is going from the Washington Capitals to the LA Kings, and Pierre-Luc Dubois is on his way to Washington. As the resident Washington fan on the podcast, immediate reaction, and after you've let it settle in, where you at now?
Immediate reaction, my heart broke right away. I didn't initially like the deal because when it first came out, all we saw was Pierre-Luc Dubois to Washington. I didn't know what was going out. I just knew that we had a really, really, really bad contract coming in. When the dust settled, when I found out Kuemper was leaving, I almost thought, okay, maybe we gave out even worse contract for a guy with top 6 potential. Maybe we can make it work. We've made it work with a lot of other players in the past. If we can get 60 points out of him, I'm happy.
Bri, where do you see PLD fitting in there? Where is he? Is he gonna fit in the first line? Is he gonna play with some Ovechkin? Where exactly do you think he can help your team the most?
Okay, he's built like a truck. Ideally first line center. Realistically, where he's gonna start right away, second line or third line center. We have a lot of center depth, so he's gonna have to compete for a spot there. But we have to see where he fits and where he slots in. Ovechkin and Strome have a lot of chemistry, so it's going to be hard to break that up. But hopefully he can find his footing somewhere.
No, 100%. Are you worried about the buy-in from because PLD obviously signed a mega extension in LA
Before even playing a game.
Yeah. Shout out to Rob Blake for that one, pal.
Oh yeah.
And clearly the intention was for him to play out his contract there. What does GMBM have to do to convince PLD to give it 100% for the next 7 years that this guy's got?
GMBM and Mr. Carberry over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brian McLellan already did his job. He got us out of the Kuemper contract. Kuemper was not good. Chucky is the starter for next year 100%, and Shepard's playing amazing, lights out in the AHL right now. Those would be our goalies. That's GMBM's job. Carberry's job is getting the most out of Pierre-Luc Dubois. We've seen this happen already with Sonny Milano, a player that didn't quite fit in with the previous teams, come to Washington, revitalize his career. We've also seen it with another top 5 pick in Dylan Strome. I think that Carberry can find the most out of Pierre-Luc Dubois. And I'm hopeful because if he pulls the same shenanigans he did in Winnipeg, Columbus, LA, we're stuck with this for a long time. It's not going to be good.
Bri, I feel like I'm in the minority here. I am rooting for PLD. Obviously he's had some issues with the 3 previous teams he's been on. Could you see a scenario where like Ovi takes him under his wing, and that could be maybe the thing that gets him on a straight and narrow path?
Yes, that's certainly a possibility. But then again, I want to give a flip side of the coin too. We've also seen the Kuznetsov situation where we have to retain half the salary and ship him off for nothing to Carolina, essentially. I also just wanted to say that this is the type of move you make when you want to stay competitive. It's high risk, high reward. It's a gamble, but we know that we're going to try to stay competitive as long as Alex Ovechkin is on this team. Fingers crossed it works out, though.
Bryan, I want to ask you about the other side of this trade here. Darcy Kuemper is who you guys are losing. What are the LA Kings getting in Kuemper?
They're getting an aging goalie that puts up maybe an .899 next year at best.
That was a save percentage last year. But okay.
Would that not lead the Kings in save percentage?
Dude, that's music to their ears. An upgrade? $8.99? Listen, Bryan, he had a .909 the year before. Is there not some of that still in there, or you think you sound like he's cooked?
We're talking about numbers. It's like 35.
635 save percentage, pal?
Whoa, what's 635?
Garrett Sparks.
Is that Ben Scrivens?
No. So if we're talking about numbers, I mean, like he's 35 years of age. He's not getting any better anytime soon. Like I said, that's another contract when we sign. It's high risk, high reward. A goalie coming off a cup win, never played a game in Washington, doesn't know our system. It didn't work out, and I mean, we had to get away from that contract, given our 2 goalies coming up right now. So.
All right, last question for you here, Bryan. What is next up for the Capitals? Are they doing anything else before the draft, or is that where the next move comes in, just the way of drafting somebody?
I think that Nick Jensen or Trevor Van Riemsdyk will be moving. I think that we got to clear up a defenseman, and I think that we need to bring in another forward as well.
Free agency or trade?
Is there anybody coming up from? Well, Hershey is Hershey not
They're
in the finals right now?
Yeah.
Is there anybody coming up from Hershey that can fill in those spots for cheap?
Hopefully, Ivan Mironishenko gets some full-time ice this season. No guarantees, though.
Your boy
Especially
Hendricks Lapierre?
Yeah, he'll be playing for sure. He's actually going to be competing with Pierre-Luc Dubois, so we'll see what happens there.
All right, Bryan, thanks so much for calling in. This was pretty cool. We'll get you on again, dude.
Before I leave, I just wanted to say one thing. Go Bears. We're going to win back-to-back AHL championships.
Also, go Team Germany. Eh? You guys are looking pretty hot right now. I'll be honest, Bryan. I underestimated the Germans heading into this tournament. You guys are starting to change my mind.
I feel like I have to always give this spiel when we bring up Bryan's teams that he cheers for. He is from Toronto, cheers for the Washington Capitals, cheers for the U.S. in hockey, and cheers for Germany in soccer.
And Chelsea.
Whoa.
And cheers for So listen,
and Bayern Munich.
I gotta throw all of those out there whenever Bryan talks about that. So
U.S. hockey.
yeah, listen, that's another conversation for another day.
Yeah,
That's tough.
Last words, Bryan.
interesting.
Take care, guys. Have a great time. All the best.
Okay.
Thanks, pal.
See you,
Bryan.
pal.
All right.
Look at
That
that.
was Bryan Wong, everybody.
Shout out to our first guest.
Absolutely.
Current host of BD Sports as well. He's BD Sports.
That's
man.
co-owner BD
that's
Sports
right
right there.
co-owner,
Yep.
like
Washington
yeah.
Capitals insider.
Yeah. Knows more than the GM, apparently.
Honestly, man, I'm ready to look up on my phone in 20 minutes and see Nick Jensen traded. To the
Honestly,
Canucks, bro.
honestly, Bryan's probably making the move right now as we speak.
Honestly.
He's actually trying to get Trevor Van Riemsdyk currently, just fired off into the sun.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to some of the other moves that have gone down the past couple of days. The trade is 1 for 2. Jakob Markstrom going to New Jersey Devils in exchange for their 2025 first-round pick and Kevin Ball, a 23-year-old defenseman. This was a bombshell as well. What did we make of this one when it came through?
Great trade for the Devils.
Yeah.
Keith's less than a month into his tenure. You could argue he's got a better goalie now than he had at his time in Toronto. So I thought it was great for the Devils.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I mean, personally, when I saw the trade come through and the pieces started to come out, I was a little bit surprised. I thought the length in which the deal, not that the deal took a long time to come through, but the way that Markstrom had been available for some time, it seemed like they were really going to cash in, at least in terms of some picks. So I was kind of surprised to see just the 1 first-round pick. And I think Cristian will probably talk about this too, but seeing the pick for next year as opposed to this year where New Jersey is likely going to be a much more improved team from the down year that they had in 2023-24.
I'm also pretty confused on the direction the Flames are going in. Anyone have any thoughts on what they're doing?
Well, I do like Cristian sent us a note about the Flames seem to be stockpiling picks. They've got, I think, 6 first-round picks over the next 3 drafts, a higher number of seconds and thirds than they typically would as well. So I think they're just kind of saying, hey, we'll take the cap space. Kevin Ball is a serviceable defenseman, and we'll kind of go from there. We'll start to rebuild. That's the direction I take it as.
I mean, they took the cap space, but they still had to retain some salary on a guy. I mean, listen, he did post a 905. You couldn't get a little bit more off. If we could argue that 900, right, maybe even lower than 900 is league average. I'd say 899, 898. That's probably about league average. Okay, granted, it's only a 7.7% save differential there. Man, you had to eat salary plus retain on him. You're not getting the whole contract off the books, but I guess it doesn't really matter if you're Calgary right now. They're going nowhere very fast. That seems to be and this kind of all started, honestly, when they traded away. They let Johnny Gaudreau walk, traded Makachuk after that. it just seems to just keep falling farther and farther. Like the Oilers, as much as they're going to win, they could potentially win a Stanley Cup. They single-handedly destroyed the rivals franchise
That's
for the time
exactly-
being.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go with it. And specifically about the franchise, we're talking about Jakob Markstrom. They destroyed Jakob Markstrom.
Yeah.
Guys, how many playoff runs has Jakob Markstrom been on in his entire career? He's 34 years old. Two. That's it. One with Vancouver. Played 14 games, put up a 9-19 in that playoff run, and then he had the 12-game run with the Flames where they collided, obviously, with the Edmonton Oilers, ended up in the 9-1 in that. But listen, that shattered his confidence in himself, and we really have no framework to see if he's rebuilt that in the postseason. So that's what the Devils are going to have to be betting on. I still do like this move for the Devils because there is not the pressure that there exists in a Canadian market in New Jersey. Like the Leafs were rumored to be in this deal. It makes sense, so obviously the Calgary connection, Brad Tree living. But I would have not looked forward to seeing Jakob Markstrom in the playoffs with the pressure that comes with playing in Toronto. I don't know if that would have been a great scenario for him to play in. And then, Brad, I'll back up a bit, Brando. You said about like this year, the 2024 pick versus 2025. I think the Devils have a pick like in that 8 to 11 range. And honestly, maybe I selfishly, not even selfishly, but I kind of wanted to see like a parallel between this trade and the Corey Schneider-Bo Horvat trade where, they traded, like Vancouver got that number 9 pick. Devils got Corey Schneider. This was kind of giving me the same vibes. So I was surprised it's 2025 pick because I think we're safe to say the Devils should be better than they were last year. So you're losing some value there. Kevin Ball, he's huge. He's 6'6", 23 years old. He's probably a third pairing defenseman, but he's gonna get opportunity in Calgary. There probably is a scenario where he ends up turning into something more. Like he's not gonna give you offense. He only had 11 points last year. His career high in goals is 2 in the past 3 seasons. I think the most you can get out of him is maybe he's a great 5 for you. But that's valuable. There is something there. And then that retention is huge for the Devils. It's absolutely huge. And really, getting any goalie would be an upgrade for what they had last year and even the year before, right? We knew that was their biggest need. We knew they've been targeting Markstrom. I think if you got to choose a winner in this deal, it's tough not to go with the Devils.
Yeah. This seems a bit more long-term for the Flames, even though I'm not too... They clearly have Dustin Wolf on mind. Like that... Is that safe to say that?
Oh yeah.
Right now they have Dan Vladar and Wolf as their RFA. I would assume that they re-sign Wolf probably for relatively cheap. He's only got a handful of games of NHL experience under his belt. 18 games. That shouldn't fetch that large of a contract. So does that mean that they're running with Dan Vladar, who's got another like this year? Before becoming a free agent? Is it Dan Vladar and Dustin Wolf for them heading into next year?
I think based on the expectations for them this season, we already talked about. There's somewhere in between like a rebuild and a retool. It's very much in flux, and that could change with other moves that they make this year. But based on those types of expectations, that's kind of the duo that you'd go in with, right? Young guy and guy looking to rebuild his own value.
I mean, even Dan Vladar is pretty young at 26 years old. Like he could be some found money there. Who knows? Maybe he's an asset at the upcoming deadline.
Exactly.
When somebody ultimately needs a goaltender.
And they have a lot of guys like that too that are going to be like trade bait. Mangiapane, he's a good Italian boy. Andrew Mangiapane, he's going to be a free agent after next season.
Andre
Kuzmenko. I think there's someone else I'm forgetting. Oh yeah, Dan Vladar, like you said. So listen, like those are names that you can throw around at the deadline, and they definitely should have value. So they're going to pick up more picks, and they'll probably go, like you guys said, more to that rebuild direction.
Yeah, I'd say this draft is huge for them. I think this draft would probably help them kind of find a direction they want to go in. Obviously, 6 picks in the first 3 rounds, and like you said, I think they'll probably end up with more.
Yeah. I think that's any last thoughts on this trade before I move on?
I would say that for me, I think an underrated point of the whole trade is the decision by Markstrom to waive his no-move clause and go to New Jersey. It was rumored that was a preferred destination for him, even going back to the last trade deadline. But I think that is part of why the return appears to be so small, is that they might have been hamstrung. I haven't heard many rumors. It sounds like he was maybe willing to come to the Leafs, but I don't know that that combination of Markstrom and Calgary being aligned in wanting to make a deal, or maybe the deal wasn't right. But I think it's possible that New Jersey was one of the few places that Markstrom was willing to waive for.
Any thoughts on if you wanted to see the Leafs make that move? Like, if you could just insert Leafs pieces into that deal. We don't have a 2025 first, but let's just say it's the 2024. Yeah. We have pick number 23. And Kevin Ball, like, I think the closest equivalent is like Liljegren. So 23 in Liljegren for Markstrom at 31% retained, so he's making 4.125. How would you guys have felt about that?
If I get the retained money, I would do that deal in a second. I feel like the control, even at Markstrom's age, for the next couple of years is great. And then at that point, I think you can reevaluate where Joseph Woll is, where your team is, what you need to kind of fill in, and how your team actually looks with what would hopefully be a legitimate number one goalie.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm still like off the philosophy of trading for goalies. Like, I think in today's NHL with the crazy offense, I would prefer to just go cheaper in net. You get like your lottery tickets, and the Leafs could fill their depth chart and go with like 4 options like Matt Murray or Martin Jones, Dennis Hildeby, insert UFA back up here, Joseph Woll starting the season healthy. I would rather trust that than having to spend assets on a goalie, because listen, guys, they are the biggest like lottery ticket in the league. I think everyone realizes that. Probably even goalies, honestly. There's a reason the saying is goalies are voodoo, right? But yeah, I get it. I get the appeal for Markstrom, and I think it'll definitely work out for New Jersey better than it would have, better than what they were running with previously. Okay, let's move on to another move. This wasn't a trade. This actually happened on waivers. Chris Drury, the GM of the New York Rangers, sends Barclay Goodrow to what I'm calling Moon Jail. He's going to San Jose.
Sent him to Azkaban.
Yeah. So, at least it's Sunny Azkaban, right? Sandy Azkaban.
Sandy Azkaban.
Yeah. So, like,
emphasis on the Az.
Yeah.
Alcatraz.
It's pretty close to Alcatraz.
Yeah, honestly, right? Yeah. You
Catch a bus.
Probably see Alcatraz from. Oh yeah.
This guy's playing Mob of the Dead right now.
I'd love to play that. Okay, Barclay Goodrow, 31-year-old. He was signed at 3 points. 3.64167. Why do we have to have these
That's
crazy?
Yeah.
So listen, 3.6. He had a modified no trade clause for the next 3 seasons. And Chris Drury said, "Listen, we can't trade this guy unless he waives. I'm just gonna throw him on waivers and not pray to God that somebody picks him up." I think they definitely spoke to San Jose beforehand. But yeah, they just put him on waivers to basically circumvent that modified no trade clause. Barclay Goodrow started his career in San Jose. He's now going back there, and the reports are he is not happy about this. I sent you guys a link to an article by Larry Brooks just reporting kind of on the situation. But if you haven't checked it out, what do you guys make of that, how this went down? Chris Drury just kind of throwing Barclay Goodrow to the Wolves. We get it. It's a big deal. He's got a shed cap. But the report says, listen, he didn't contact him or ask him about this at all.
I think the time of, playing nice with everybody on your roster is starting to come to an end. At the end of the day, I'm sorry, Barclay, this is a results business. And you know what his results were? I'm looking at them right now. In 22-23, let's start when he signed, 21-22, 13 goals, which definitely not. Oh, it is a career high. That's a career high. 20 assists, career high at that time for 33 points, also a career high. The next season puts up similar numbers: 11 goals, 20 assists, 31 points. Does anybody anybody's not on the thing, do you want to guess how many goals Barclay Goodrow had this year? I think Christian's looking at it, so probably not him.
Yeah.
10?
Is this regular season?
Regular season, yeah.
I would say like 12, 13. So
he had 4 goals.
That's it.
He had 4 goals, 12 points.
He had more in the
He
playoffs.
matched Connor Brown's production.
He did have more in the playoffs.
I know that.
He had 6 goals in the playoffs. So that is what you are buying Barclay. Yeah. If you're getting Barclay Goodrow, you're getting him for playoff performance. Definitely
so
not.
San Jose is going to really enjoy him in the playoffs next year, right?
I mean, listen, they do have 3 years to figure it out with him. They have the first overall pick, tons of cap space, tons of picks coming up soon. Listen, I wouldn't hate going to it's San Jose. It's California,
Yeah.
pal. Like, I'm sorry. At the end of the day, it's a results business. You were the victim of being overpaid. Like, that is what it is. I'm sorry to say. And your GM is just smarter than other players. Like, because there's other GMs that probably wouldn't have even done that. Maybe they're just too loyal to sign. He signed. Did Thing not sign? Did Chris Drury not sign this deal as well?
That's
He
exactly what I brought up. He did sign him. You know that meme where it's like, we're all looking for the guy who did this?
Yeah.
That's Chris Drury right now. He's like, he came to the press. He's like, I don't know who signed him to this deal, but it sucks, so I'm going to have to trade him. Dude,
Honestly,
it was you.
I will give him his credit for jumping ship at
Sure,
the first sign of, this not being.
I wouldn't
Right.
call it the first sign. The first sign probably was before you sent him to the extension. But I get it. I get
Yeah,
it. I get it.
no, 100%.
Yeah.
The what's the
there's
saying? It said the
guys-
worst time to cut bait was yesterday.
Yeah, it's
the
like a-
next best time is today.
The gambler's fallacy, right? It's like thinking that you're already in the hole, you just keep digging, and
Yeah.
you're supposed to cut bait, and he did. He cut bait. So yeah.
Classic philosophy by Bill Belichick. You'd rather cut a guy a year early than a year late.
Oh, that's a nice
true.
quote.
Yeah. So yeah, honestly, kind of a sneaky move, but smart move. Like, sorry, pal, you
Yeah.
kind of stink. Hit the road.
Hit the road, Jack.
It certainly allows the Rangers a certain amount of flexibility.
Oh,
but
yeah,
but
it's
I think
huge.
the interesting thing about this, and I think why it gained so much attention for a relatively minor move, was and Larry Brooks he laid it out, is that Goodrow actually, it was a 15-team no trade list, I
Yeah.
believe. So it's not that the Rangers couldn't trade him; it was that excuse me, that he was probably unaware that they wanted to trade him at all. It sounds like
Yeah.
they may have looked at some suitors potentially that were on his list, and maybe there wasn't a deal to be made. But it does sound the relationship with Sharks GM Mike Greer. It's an interesting kind of situation to hear some of the rumors about their relationship and whether or not this was done as maybe a sign of goodwill or a friendly deal behind the scenes. So I think that's where some of the interest comes in. But overall, I think the Rangers did what they probably had to do.
Yeah, him and Drury are pretty good friends, I've heard. So kind of a pat me on the back kind of move, I'd say, from the Rangers.
You scratch your back, I'll scratch.
Yeah.
You scratch
Yeah.
mine, I'll scratch yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah.
I mean, Greer, he's got to do something right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Listen,
He's
I
got to
actually-
start turning this team around.
Yeah.
I also don't hate it for the Sharks. Like
Yeah.
you said, they don't. There is not a pressing need to get to the playoffs. There's not those expectations. They're not going to be up near the cap. Why not bring a guy in who is a noted good hockey man
Yeah.
in Barclay Goodrow?
Yeah,
right? Like, no,
Well, bring
it's-
somebody in. Like
Yeah.
Barclay Goodrow, I think, automatically fits in their top six
dude,
like,
honestly,
right away.
right? And,
So,
it actually worked for Chicago this year, right? Corey Perry, Taylor Hall,
Well,
Nick Foligno.
yeah.
Listen,
a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Maybe not that first one. The other ones, yes. So, yeah. Roundabout.
no, I
Fine.
could see the thinking.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
The thought
The
is
blueprint
there.
is there.
Just don't get yourself, fired off the team, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
But-
these type of guys are Dave,
Yeah.
are the type of players that I think they'll want to surround a Macklin Celebrini with, like
Yeah.
guys who have been around
Yeah.
the league a little bit, have played in the playoffs.
Two-time Cup champ, too? right?
He's got experience, and it's a valuable thing to have when you have.
He's got at least one.
He was there on Tampa in 2019-20 and 20 and 21.
Bang.
2021. So
Look at
that's
that.
two-time Cup champ as well, Barclay Goodrow.
Yeah,
That's
something
the type of guy you want. Yeah,
you can't teach
100%.
that.
100%.
I'll mention as well, just because we're talking San Jose, Ty Delangelo from the Dallas Stars was traded to San Jose for a fourth-round pick. He's just one of those guys I irrationally like in the league. I don't know why. He's just somebody that I would have taken a flyer on if I'm the Leafs. From Toronto. So I think that's another good pickup for San Jose. He was getting pushed out of the Stars lineup because they just have like
Too
just
many.
that pipeline of youth coming, right? So it makes sense, and I think he'll get good opportunity in San Jose. And I don't know why. I just like Delangelo.
Free Logan Couture.
Yeah.
For my boy.
There's
He's
that.
logged. If somebody's an
Yeah.
Oscar man, it's
Yeah.
that guy.
He's been in Alcatraz for 10 years.
He's the warden right there.
Yeah,
that
he is
guy.
the warden.
Yeah. Okay. Outside of waivers and trades, there was a bunch of signings, all by way of extensions, RFA deals. Number one on that list was Philip Roenick earlier this week. 7.25 times 8. I think this is a deal that is pretty polarizing. Where do you guys land on the Philip Roenick deal?
It's a great deal. I'd say locking up solid guy on your back end. He's kind of, would you compare him to Zadorov? I see some similarities, but I would obviously take Hronek.
They've got similar shots. I'd say
Yeah.
like the offense, yeah.
Yeah.
Hronek's less of he's less of like a bully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think him and Hughes, that kind of shores up your top two D-men, so I like the deal.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, 48. He only had 5 goals this year, which is it's a bit surprising because, like, last year he put up a career high with 9, tied for a career high with 9, sorry. But 43 assists, like 48 points, half a point a game, plays both sides of the puck pretty well, pairing with potentially one of, I would say, top 5 D-men in the league right now.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe even higher, like on any given day.
Yep. Probably the Norris winner.
Potentially. Yeah, potentially. It's so hard to fault Vancouver for making this deal. Like that seems like I don't think it's a haircut by any chance. Like, do you think 7.25 is a haircut right now for a player of that, for a half point a game, like that type of?
I think it's a very fair deal.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, half a point per game. He definitely, I would say, he's more of an offensive defenseman than defensive. So I understand if like people are basically saying that he was carried by Quinn Hughes on that pairing. I wouldn't say that's the case. I think it's not a coincidence that Quinn Hughes had his best season of his career when he finally had a competent defenseman to play with, right? Yep. Whether that, like, listen, part of defense is like offense is a great defense, and Filip Hronek helped provide that. He's a good puck mover. He can skate the puck, and that's good in itself. Maybe he's not the greatest in his zone, but the results showed it. That it was a really successful season for them. I know that Canucks fans were kind of worried about his playoff production. Only 2 points in 13 games. There's rumors that like it was an injury. He wouldn't confess to them in the presser at their locker clean out, but I think after what we saw from him in his first year with the Canucks, I do think it's a fair deal.
Yeah, I think it comes down to how the Canucks view him. I think having him with Quinn Hughes and forecasting that pairing as something that they can look to as a top line for the next, potentially 8 years, I think that was the perfect number for them to come in at. I think it is a bit of an upgrade in terms of the payment. He was coming off I think 3-year, $4.4 million contract with
a bridge deal, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that. Not that would have been underpay, but I think somewhere around 6.5 might have been more appropriate. But only because they're running off a limited number of years with Quinn Hughes. I think if they're confident that he is that's their top pairing for the next 5 to 10 years, I think this is a great deal for them. It gives them again flexibility to continue building without strapping themselves too much in their top two. D pairing.
Just one more reason why I think it's a decent deal. He's only 26, so even on an 8-year term, that only takes him to 34.
It's a perfect time to lock him in for that amount of time.
You're buying a lot of good years there, and if you had to give him that like 1 or 2 extra years to lock him in, I do think that's a worthy trade-off.
And yeah, like touching on the point production kind of concerns, like when you're playing with Quinn Hughes, like someone's gotta play defense. Like, Hughes is basically a forward out there, so I think he kind of steadies that pairing as well. Like obviously he's a defenseman, but I think he tries.
He's a rover.
He's a rover. So
he's something
I think
in between.
Yeah, Hronek's a solid guy to have there with him. So I like it.
Yeah, and listen, just because you signed Hronek doesn't mean you also can't get somebody else to play with Quinn Hughes and have Hronek on his own pairing. Like that's a solution too. They've got Tyler Myers coming off the books. They've got a lot of money to work with. So I do think there's big things in store for Vancouver. Just some more minor stuff here before we wrap up. Nedeljkovic, Pittsburgh Penguins goalie, signed a 2.5 times 2. I did think that was worthy of putting in here just because from a Leaf standpoint, we just talked about it. They might be buying in this kind of price range in free agency. Nedeljkovic put up a 902 in 38 games. Anybody have strong feelings about Alex Nedeljkovic?
I think Kyle Dubas does. I think he really likes the guy.
Which is funny because do you remember that game, like back when Dubas was with the Leafs, and we played Nedeljkovic when he was in Detroit.
The Carolina game?
No, it was a Detroit game where he looked like it was one of the worst goalie performances.
Was that the 10-7 game?
It might have been that one. Yeah.
Then we had, I think all 4 goalies played in that game.
Yeah, it was insane.
So imagine a 10-7 game.
Like imagine seeing that and you're like, I want that guy.
Yeah, that's who I want. Top of the list.
Yeah, right. Circle his name in red marker.
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, I can't really fault them for that. They're gonna be stinky again, if I'm gonna be honest with you guys. They really are. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Pens fans, but they're mid.
They're just. I think they're just throwing something at a dartboard when it comes to trying to figure out their goalie situation. Like, no offense to Jari, but I don't know if he's the guy long term.
Yeah, I think they're trying to get kind of bridge the gap now between what they're doing and trying to keep a good enough tandem to keep them alive for the next year or two. Obviously, a 2-year deal for Nedeljkovic. And then I think they'll kind of revisit what they're going to do long term with the goalie situation. Obviously, with Jari, I think I think he's a legitimate starting goalie in the NHL, but he's had some struggles, whether that's through injury or through just some down runs at times as well.
Okay, and Jalen Chatfield, this was, I want to say, like almost a week ago to the day. He signed a 3x3 to stay in Carolina. It's Eric Tulsky's first signing as a interim or now the actual GM. I think it's an underrated move. I was looking at Jalen Chatfield if he had got to free agency. 6'1", so just average sized. But this is a guy who stepped into big minutes come playoff time. Rod the Bod really trusted him. He actually leapfrogged Brent Burns, Brett Pesce, and Brady Shea in 5-on-5 time on ice in the playoffs. Those are Brady Shea's about to get absolutely paid, and I would love for the Leafs to pay him. But I think that's a really huge testament to what Chatfield did in growing during the year. So listen, we're used to Carolina making really shrewd moves. I think this is just one of them, and definitely wouldn't be surprised if Tulsky makes more of them because, he's pretty damn good.
8 goals for Jalen Chatfield on the season, surpassing his career high of 6, which he set last year. 22 points for somebody playing let's say 4 or 5, maybe potentially going up higher 3.
I think that 4 or 5. I think you nailed it. Yeah.
I think of 4 is that is perfect for Jalen Chatfield. If you get that type of production, I vaguely remember him being pretty lights out defense. He wasn't off. He didn't really get burnt too many times. I think he's pretty competent defensively at the very least. That's all you could ask for.
He's a very Hurricanes typical defenseman, right?
That's all you could ask for a 4 is be competent, basically, right? You can't not. I mean, if you're playing in the NHL, you got to be competent. But especially for that, for $3 million, not much you could hate there.
Yeah, great price for a guy. I think any playoff team would want on their blue line. And
I think if he had got to free agency, that number's probably a bit higher too, right?
Yeah, and especially the situation in which the Hurricanes are in, they're kind of uncertain about whether or not they've got they're going to have Pesce as well as Shea, as you mentioned, Cristian, earlier. They had to do a little bit of roster protection. And I think this works. This isn't any kind of overpayment. This is perfect for, I think, where Chatfield has come. He's definitely developed over the last couple of years into a guy they trust at the back end of the D, and I think it provides them with that kind of depth that they might hopefully not need. But yeah.
And last up here is Capo Caco, 2.4 times 1 as an RFA. Listen, he had a tough year, 19 points in 61 games, just 2 points in 15 games for the Rangers in the playoffs. I think he was healthy scratched in one of them too. I don't know. It's the Caco situation's tough to ever gauge. Even though he signed this deal, I've still been seeing him on trade bait, articles and stuff. So we'll see. Maybe he's still on the move. I think the Rangers did come out recently and say that's not the case. But like I said, reporters still saying he's out there. So we'll see what's going on there.
To me, that's a huge trade bait. I think that's a 60 game show us now, and then if not, you're out of here,
pal.
Yeah.
I was just about to say, well, we saw Chris Drury make a pretty shrewd move with Barclay Goodrow. This almost seems like if he's not at least on a 40-point pace by the trade deadline, hey pal, sorry, you're a big piece getting moved to insert rebuilding team for a big piece coming back like that.
Get ready to learn Columbus, buddy.
Get ready to learn San Jose knees, buddy. You're getting shipped back. I mean,
you're sharing a cell with Barclay Goodrow and you're in jail.
Yeah,
see you in Alcatraz, buddy.
Yeah.
It just I don't know. It doesn't. It seems like now it's almost too far gone. I mean, he put up 40 points last season with the Rangers, and it looked like he was really turning a corner. But again, 19 and 61. I believe he was hurt for stretches of the season. It's sorry, pal. Again, results business, and your results were starting to happen. They're not happening right now. They might have to cut. Maybe he cuts bait and he becomes once again, a 45, 50-point player to whatever rebuilding team he goes to. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just a change of scenario. Who knows? But that's something that maybe we got to put in our back pocket and look forward to come January, February, let's say. So.
Let's park a couple minutes here. I think we've got like 2 or 3 minutes to spare here,
Okay.
Dave. Talk some soccer. Talk some Euros. Talk some Copa
You want me to
America.
talk?
Well, we all can, but yeah, you're the guy.
Okay, so big fraud watch on England right now. Man, they go up.
Foden, man.
They go up 1-0 on the Danes, who they should be They should be handling this the group that they have pretty easily, and they're making a meal out of it, basically, as the English would say. They are definitely making a hash out of everything. They score pretty early, Harry Kane, and they just sit back and defend, which I understand the tactics from Gareth Southgate, but he's not putting Phil Foden in the right positions to succeed. He at one point he did let Phil kind of roam that flank a bit more and get him into like positions where he could generate some offense, and he was creating some chances, and then he told him no, and that was the end of Phil Foden.
Yeah.
He left Cole Palmer on the bench. The guy had 33 goal contributions this year for Chelsea, and he has 0 minutes so far going in the tournament. He's starting guys like who's in the midfield there. He's starting guys like Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's a fullback by trade, and he's playing him in the midfield at probably the biggest tournament in Europe and probably the most crucial time for England to win. So it's baffling decisions especially when you got guys like Kobe Mino on the bench, and there's other players as well. I just think of him first, because he's my boy.
So Gareth Southgate just big braining.
Gareth Southgate is big braining his way out of a job. It looks like, personally.
How about Azzurri?
Yeah, the next team there, the Italians, they really stuck up the shop yesterday.
Yeah.
It's tough because there's parts to like about the team, and there's other parts where they just don't have the talent anymore.
Yeah.
Having Federico Chiesa go down, I think it was last season with last season with an ACL injury. He still looks a bit like a shell of himself. It wasn't very noticeable against the Spanish. I don't know if it was that Italy played bad. Let's not beat around the bush here. They just couldn't.
They were getting just destroyed on the shot chances. I think it was 20-1 on
everything.
attempts, right?
Spain was pressing Italy out of. They were playing in Gelsenkirchen. They were pressing them right out of the stadium, basically. And maybe that, honestly, hats off to Spain. That's another team I also underestimated as well with Germany. I just don't want to see those two teams win, basically.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'll give credit to Spain where credit's due. They look like a well-oiled team, a team that just can't really finish. They don't have a goal scorer there to get them going forward. It's tough. I think Spain's probably going to do well this tournament. I think right now for Italy, if they can make it even to a quarterfinal at this current stage, they should look at it as a win because they really got to start cooking going forward. 2026, they should be looking at 2026 to make an improvement. They at least got to make that tournament. They got to come over to North America, especially after missing the last two.
Quick 30 seconds on Canada.
The last team. I don't know. I think everybody here. Do you guys all watch the Canada game?
I did watch that. Yeah.
So as people that I don't know, have you guys watched a lot of Canada soccer over the past couple of years?
Yeah. For me personally, I was following mostly their World Cup qualifying, and then obviously watched their performances at the World Cup, and from there, it's been a little bit since I really tuned in, but last night was unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat.
Okay, so I would say last night against Argentina, home tournament opening game in the Copa America against the reigning World Cup champions. What an honor! That was such an honor. I don't want to be preachy or sentimental here, because the Team Canada needs to get out of that preachy mentality. They got to start
no more moral lessons.
No more moral victories, and that is what Alphonso Davies said after their loss to Argentina. But I will give them credit; they genuinely played a better game, honestly, a better game than both the Italians and the English yesterday. If we're being honest, scoring no goals. Had some good chances on a pretty tough Argentina side. An Argentina side that is well-oiled, fully healthy almost, and
Number one in the world.
ranked number one in the world. Yeah, everything about that game screams Argentina win. And while they did win, we could still pick up moral victories, but we also do need to see progress going forward.
0-0 at half is like
that was huge. I'll be honest with you.
That was great.
I did put there was a bet like a boost on a site where it was over half a goal in the first half. It was a super boost, so it was double your money basically if you put it down. It went up from a minus 740.
Wow.
That's how much they expected a goal to come in the first half. It was a tough loss from it's a tough loss to handle. Now I want to see the response basically. If Team Canada goes in with that same mentality against both Peru and Chile, who I think if I'm being honest, maybe I'm out of my mind here, but I think they have a pretty respectable team in comparison to both of those South American sides. Like they should be beating Chile. They should be beating Peru. Yeah. They should at least give Chile a good fight. Maybe they can snag a win off of them. Even getting a point off of Chile would be huge. That is where I'm looking going forward. They did it against the highest of all opponents, and they've shown before that they could do it against the big opponents. They did it against Belgium. They showed that they could compete against Belgium. Then they started to tail off in that World Cup. Now this is where Jesse Marsch needs to come in and say, okay, you did this before. Now going forward, I need you to be at that exact same level going ahead. And I want to give a quick I know this is longer than 30 seconds. I want to give a quick shout out to our center back pairing, the Canadian center back pairing, Moise Bombito and Derek Cornelius, who, despite the 2-0 loss, I think looked very competent. Moise Bombito is looking.
I heard him a lot, by the commentary.
He is rapid. That guy is where defense is going right now, especially as a center back. You need speedy guys who are good with the ball at their feet. Moise Bombito has that. And it's no surprise that teams in Europe are looking at him. Same with Derek Cornelius. I believe he's being looked at by FC Copenhagen, who's the biggest team in Denmark, which would be a huge step up for him, as well as Ismail Kone, who honestly didn't have that great of a game. But when he is on, that guy is genuinely probably one of the best midfielders Canada has ever produced. Yeah. And that's saying a lot because they've had a few, including one of them that plays right beside him in Stefan Eustachio. Would like to see more from Jonathan David, though, who's actually been in talks to head elsewhere in Europe. He's at Lille in France right now. Multiple teams in Italy, including and also in England as well, including my favorite team, Man United, are looking to get his services going forward. So if he comes to Man United, you can expect me to buy a Jonathan David jersey. My Canadian boy, same name as me, right?
That'd be huge.
Huge. Other than that, that's my Euro roundup.
A shout out to Dave, a little bit of the soccer corner there. Well, we'll definitely do it again as the tournaments progress, Copa America and the Euros. Dave, where can you buy a Alphonso Davies Edmonton Oilers jersey?
Yeah, that's a really good reference right there. You could buy that on NHLshop.com.
Shout out to NHL Shop. Shout out to Fubo. Shout out to Razor. Shout out to everybody for tuning in again. Really fun episode, and we'll see you again soon.